The thunder cracked like a gunshot over Portland's rainy skyline, and in that split second, the old cedar gate I'd been meaning to reinforce for months gave way, slamming into my shoulder with the force of a betrayal I never saw coming. I hit the mud-slicked grass of my backyard, pain exploding through my arm as rain pelted my face like accusations from a life half-lived, and all I could do was whisper, "Not now. Not like this." Then, through the downpour, a figure emerged from the shadows of the neighbor's fence. A woman in oil-stained overalls, her flashlight beam cutting the chaos like a lifeline, calling out, "Hey, you okay down there? Hold still. I've got you." Her name was Lena, and she wasn't supposed to be there. I'd called the local handyman service that morning, voice shaking over the phone as I described the gate's groan under last night's wind, how it listed like my own resolve after 20 years of pretending. Portland's craft beer scene and hipster coffee shops masked 1,000 quiet desperations like mine, but mine felt sharper, etched into the lines around my eyes at 35. I'd built a life here after college. A craftsman bungalow in the Hawthorne district, an architecture firm gig designing eco-friendly lofts for tech bros who thought sustainability meant reclaimed wood accents. And Sarah, my ex-wife, the woman I'd married to silence the whispers in my chest, the ones that said I loved differently, loved men in the stolen glances at gym lockers and late-night TV heartthrobs. We'd divorced amicably 6 months ago, chalking it up to growing apart in therapy sessions that danced around the truth. She knew, in fragments. I'd confessed one tipsy night over IPAs at a brewpub, tears mixing with foam as I admitted the marriage was my shield. She hugged me then, said she loved the Alex she'd built a life with, even if it wasn't all of me. Now, alone in this house that echoed with her absence, the gate's collapse felt symbolic, a barrier crumbling, exposing the raw ache beneath. Lena knelt beside me, her calloused hands steady as she assessed the damage. Mid-40s, with a no-nonsense bob haircut streaked gray and laugh lines that spoke of hard days turned into stories. She was the kind of Pacific Northwest woman who'd hike Mount Hood at dawn and brew her own kombucha by noon. "Name's Lena," she said, her voice cutting through the rain like a well-sharpened saw. "You must be Alex. Dispatch said you'd called about a gate. Looks like it called back." She flashed a wry grin, helping me to my feet, her touch firm on my elbow. Practical, not lingering. But as she steadied me against the fence post, her other hand brushed my shoulder, light as a forgotten promise, right where the gate had struck. It wasn't the pain that made my breath hitch. It was the gentleness, unasked for and unearned, a spark that ignited something dormant. In that moment, under the relentless Oregon drizzle, my heart stumbled, not for her, but for the ghost of what it craved. Connection without conditions, touch without the weight of performance. I mumbled a thank you, cheeks burning hotter than the bruise forming, and she waved it off. "Let's get you inside before you catch pneumonia. I'll call my brother to help with the heavy lifting. Ethan's better with the structural stuff anyway." Ethan. The name landed like a soft echo, unfamiliar yet resonant. Lena pulled out her phone, dialing with one hand while slinging her toolbox over her shoulder with the other. We trudged up the back steps to my kitchen, where the scent of yesterday's takeout Thai hung in the air like regret. I flicked on the lights, warm Edison bulbs I'd installed myself, and offered her coffee, black as the storm outside. She accepted, leaning against the counter as thunder rumbled approval. "Ethan's finishing a job in Selwood," she explained, sipping. "Family business. We fix what breaks. Gates, fences, hearts if we could." Her eyes twinkled, but there was a shadow there, a shared knowing. "You live alone now?" The question hung, casual but probing. I nodded, busying myself with mugs to avoid her gaze. "Yeah." Just me and the house. Lies by omission were my specialty. The divorce papers were still in the drawer, Sarah's forwarding address a post-it on the fridge. Lena didn't push, but as she set her mug down, her hand grazed my shoulder again. Checking the bruise, she said, "That touch, innocent and assured, sent a tremor through me, not attraction but awakening. It reminded me of college summers in Seattle, sneaking kisses with a barista named Jamie behind the espresso machine, the world narrowing to the press of stubble and whispered secrets. I'd buried that Alex under blueprints and wedding vows, but here, in the steam of cooling coffee, he stirred. Headlights pierced the window 20 minutes later, cutting the rain like a beacon. Ethan arrived soaked but unflappable, a duffel of tools slung over his broad shoulder. He was Lena's opposite, early 30s, with the lean build of someone who ran the bridges at dawn, Willamette River paths, probably under the Hawthorne Bridge's steel span. Dark hair tousled by the wind, hazel eyes sharp as drafting pencils, and a jawline that could carve canyons. He shook my hand firmly, calluses rough against my palm, and something in his grip, steady, unhurried, made my pulse skip. "Ethan Hale," he said, voice low and warm, like aged bourbon. "Heard you had a gate with a grudge." Lena snorted, grabbing her coat. "I'll leave you boys to it. Got a sink to unclog in Alberta Arts District. Text if you need backup." She clapped my shoulder one last time. Third touch, third jolt, and vanished into the night, her truck's taillights fading like a punctuation mark. Ethan assessed the gate from the porch, rain sheeting off his jacket. "This isn't just loose hinges," he murmured, more to himself. "Frames warped from years of moisture. We've got to rebuild the support." We stepped out together, the storm easing to a patter, and as he knelt to measure, his sleeve brushed my leg. Accidental, electric. I stood there, frozen, watching the way his hands moved, precise, reverent, coaxing life back into splintered wood. It was intimate, this mending, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like the broken thing. By midnight, the gate stood sturdy again, reinforced with cedar braces and stainless steel. Ethan wiped his brow, grinning up at me from the grass. "She'll hold now, stronger than before." We shared a beer on the porch swing, local IPA, hops bitter as unspoken truths, and talked shop. He was a contractor by trade, specializing in historic restorations. Loved the bones of old Portland houses, the stories in their beams. I confessed my own passion for sustainable design, how I dreamed of retrofitting bungalows for queer youth shelters, spaces safe enough to breathe. The words slipped out unbidden, the beer loosening the knot in my throat. "You're out?" he asked. Not judgment, just curiosity, his eyes steady on mine. I swallowed, trying to be complicated. He nodded, clinking his bottle against mine. "Complicated's my middle name. Lena's the brave one. Divorced her high school sweetheart. Came out at 40 with a bang. Me, still figuring the quiet parts." His laugh was self-deprecating, but his gaze lingered, a question wrapped in hazel. That night, as he drove off into the cleared sky, stars pricking the clouds like hesitant confessions, I touched my shoulder where Lena's hand had been. The bruise throbbed, but so did hope, a stumble toward something real. The days blurred into a rhythm I'd forgotten. Work sketches by day, evening runs along the Willamette where cherry blossoms dusted the path like confetti from a half-remembered party. Ethan texted the next morning, "Gate holding? Need anything else fixed?" And I replied with a photo of the yard, sunlight gilding the new wood. What started as polite check-ins evolved. Coffee at Tin Shed Garden Cafe. where we split a Marionberry scone and swapped stories of botched renovations. He told me about growing up in a trailer park on Portland's east side, fixing neighbors' leaks with scavenged parts, dreaming of stability in a world that felt rigged against it. Lena raised me after Mom passed, he said, stirring his latte. Taught me tools don't judge. I shared fragments of my own fractures, the Seattle upbringing in a conservative suburb, Dad's law firm expectations, Mom's church potlucks where I learned to smile through sermons on sin. College brought freedom brief, blazing with Jamie, until graduation scattered us like leaves in a gust. Then Sarah, the safe harbor, until the waves crashed in. I thought marriage would anchor me, I admitted, tracing the cafe's scarred table. But it just made me seasick. Ethan's hand covered mine then, brief as breath, thumb brushing my knuckle. Anchors drag sometimes. Better to learn to swim. His touch echoed Lena's, gentle, grounding but carried a current, pulling me under. We didn't name it, not yet, but Portland's misty air hummed with possibility. The city a canvas of rain-slick streets and muraled alleys that whispered, you could try. A week later, he invited me to a job site in the Pearl District, loft conversion for a gallery owner. I showed up with blueprints I'd mocked up overnight, ideas for passive solar panels and reclaimed fir accents. He grinned, smudged with sawdust, and pulled me into the half-built space. Look at you, architect. Show me what you've got. We pored over plans side by side, shoulders brushing, his laughter filling the echoey room when I joked about load-bearing walls hiding family secrets. As the sun slanted through exposed beams, he turned to me, dust motes dancing like fireflies. You're good at this, Alex. Seeing the structure beneath the mess, heart pounding, I met his eyes. Takes one to know one. The air thickened, charged as the moment before a storm breaks. He leaned in, forehead to mine, breath mingling with the scent of pine and sweat. Our lips met, soft at first, tentative, then deepening with the hunger of withheld years. His hands framed my face, thumbs tracing my jaw, and I melted into him, the world narrowing to the taste of coffee on his tongue, the press of his chest solid and sure. It was Portland in that kiss. Layered, unexpected, blooming against all odds. We pulled apart gasping, foreheads still touching. I've wanted that since the gate, he murmured, voice rough. Me too, I whispered, the admission a key turning in a long-locked door. From there, it unfolded like a well-plotted blueprint. Stolen hours at my place, cooking elk burgers on the grill while indie folk played from the speakers. Fleet foxes, their harmonies weaving through the yard like vines. He'd arrive with wildflowers from roadside stands, daisies tucked into his toolbox, and we'd talk until the fireflies rose, about everything and the spaces between. He was out to his crew, Lena his fiercest ally, but carried scars from an ex named Marcus, a barista with a poet's soul and a wanderer's feet, who'd ghosted after a year, leaving Ethan adrift in a sea of unanswered texts. Betrayal's the worst carpenter, he said one night, tracing patterns on my back. Leaves splinters you can't see. I held him closer, my own ghosts quieter but no less sharp. Sarah called sporadically, her voice a bridge I was burning plank by plank. You sound happy, Alex, she said once, over speakerphone while Ethan chopped onions in the kitchen. Whoever he is, hold on. I did, fiercely, as if he'd vanish like morning fog off the river. But Portland's charm hid undercurrents. Gossip in the food carts, judgmental stares from old neighbors who'd waved at my wedding. My firm partner, Greg, cornered me one Monday, his office overlooking the Burnside Bridge. Heard you're seeing someone, he said, eyes narrowing over his latte. Greg was straight arrow straight, the kind who quoted Ayn Rand at happy hours. Just be discreet. Clients talk. The warning landed like a poorly braced beam, cracking my confidence. I nodded, throat tight, and buried myself in revisions, the thrill of Ethan's texts a secret glow under fluorescent lights. Lena became our unwitting matchmaker, inviting us to Sunday barbecues at her Selwood bungalow, where she grilled salmon and grilled us with good-natured ribbing. "You two are disgusting," she'd tease, tossing coleslaw our way. Like a Hallmark movie with better flannel, Ethan would pull me onto his lap, arm around my waist, and for those afternoons, the world felt mended, gates fixed, hearts aligned. Yet doubt crept in like ivy on brick. Late one night, after a showing at the Portland Art Museum, abstracts that mirrored my swirling emotions, Ethan grew quiet in the car. "Marcus texted," he said, staring at the dashboard. "Wants to meet for coffee. Catch up." The name hung, a specter from his past. I gripped the wheel tighter, rain smearing the windshield. "What do you want to do?" he sighed, hand on my thigh. "Nothing. But it stirs shit up." We drove in silence, the city lights blurring into accusations. Was this the stumble? The gate fixed, but the foundation shifting? Summer arrived in Portland like a reluctant guest. Blue skies pierced by Mount Hood's snowy crown, farmers' markets bursting with heirloom tomatoes and craft cider. Ethan and I dove into it, our rhythm syncing like dovetailed joints. Weekend hikes in Forest Park, where ferns carpeted the trails and we'd pause at viewpoints, his hand in mine, the city sprawling below like a promise kept. "This is us," he'd say, kissing my temple, wind tousling his hair. "Building something solid." I believed him, even as my own foundations trembled. At work, Greg's discreet lingered, manifesting in sidelong glances during client meetings. One afternoon, over sandwiches at Pine State Biscuits, he dropped the hammer. A developer pulled out on the Ecoloft bid. Word is, your personal life spooked them. Small town, Alex. Even in the city, my stomach nodded, the biscuit turning to ash. Was this the cost of stumbling into light? I texted Ethan from the bathroom stall, "Rough day. Dinner?" And his reply, "Always. Bringing pie," steadied me like rebar in concrete. That evening, he showed up with a lattice-topped apple pie from his neighbor's orchard, steam rising as we sliced it on the porch. The gate stood sentinel behind us, a testament to beginnings. Over slices, I confessed Greg's words, voice cracking on the edges. Ethan's fork paused, eyes darkening. "That's bullshit. You're talented, Alex. They don't get to dim that." He pulled me close, pie forgotten, his embrace a bulwark against the storm. We made love there under the stars, slow, reverent, bodies mapping forgiveness but doubt seated, a crack hairline at first. Lena noticed, of course, at her next barbecue, as we flipped veggie skewers over the pit. She pulled me aside by the garden hose. "He's all in," she said, wiping charcoal from her hands. "But you're holding back, like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop." Her touch on my arm, echo of that first rain-soaked night, urged truth. "Sarah called last week," I admitted. "Wants to visit. Closure," she says. "But what if it's opening old wounds?" Lena's eyes softened, the lines around them deepening with wisdom. "Wounds heal crooked sometimes. That's what makes the scars beautiful." She hugged me, fierce and fleeting, and I carried her words back to Ethan, who listened without interruption, his hand tracing mine. "Go see her," he said. "I'll be here." Gates don't fix themselves overnight. Sarah arrived a week later, stepping off the Max train at Pioneer Square with her signature bob and a suitcase that screamed temporary. We met at our old haunt, Screen Door, for fried chicken that dripped with nostalgia. She looked good, happier, unburdened, dating a gallery curator now, someone who appreciated her eye for color. "I'm proud of you," she said over biscuits, reaching across the table. Her hand on mine was sisterly, no stumble there, but it unearthed the performance we'd shared. "For choosing yourself." We walked the Pearl that afternoon, past food trucks and street artists, her arm looped through mine like old times. "Tell me about him," she prodded. And I did, Ethan's quiet strength, his laugh like thunder rolling home. But as we passed a bookstore window displaying Queer Lit, she paused. "You deserve this, Alex. Just don't let fear bolt the gate again." Her words echoed Lena's, a chorus urging forward. That night, Ethan waited with takeout pho from the Vietnamese cart on Division. We ate cross-legged on the living room rug, steam curling between us. "How'd it go?" he asked, chopsticks poised. "Healing," I said, and meant it. We talked until the bowls cooled, his head on my shoulder, and when sleep claimed us, tangled on the couch, I dreamed of open fields, no fences, no storms, but betrayal brews in calm waters. 2 days later, my phone buzzed during a site visit in the Lloyd district. Greg. Voice clipped. "We need to talk. Now." I drove to the office, gut churning, rain starting again as if on cue. He waited in conference room, a printout splayed on the table. Screenshots of Ethan's and my Instagram, candid shots from the hike, hands linked, captions innocuous but damning to the conservative clients. "Anonymous tip," Greg said, sliding them toward me. "Your boyfriend's ex? Some busybody? Doesn't matter. The firm's reputation." "Whose reputation?" I snapped, heat rising. "Mine? Because I'm gay." The word hung. First time I'd said it aloud at work. A declaration amid the fluorescent hum. Greg sighed, paternalistic. "It's business, Alex. Portland's progressive, but money's old school." He offered a transfer, remote design for a Boise branch or Severance. "Choose wisely." I chose fury, storming out into the downpour, tires hydroplaning as I raced home. Ethan was there, mid-sander on a side table he'd promised for Lena's kitchen. "What happened?" he asked, dropping the tool, sawdust clouding the air. "Everything?" I choked, collapsing into his arms. The story spilled screenshots, ultimatum, the venom of exposure. He held me, silent at first, then pulled back, face ashen. "Marcus," he whispered. He must have, after I ignored his text. "God, Alex, I'm sorry." The pieces clicked. The catch-up coffee. A grudge nursed in silence. Betrayal, double-edged, his past slicing our present. "Why didn't you tell me he was stirring shit?" I demanded, voice breaking. "I thought it was nothing, a ghost." His eyes pleaded, but anger crested, wave after wave. "You should have blocked him months ago." We shouted then, words like splinters. My fear of losing the firm, his guilt over the leak, the fragility we'd both pretended steal. "I can't do half measures anymore," I yelled, storming to the bedroom, door slamming like the gate that started it all. He left at dawn, truck rumbling away, leaving the sander abandoned, a half-finished relic. The house echoed with absence. Ethan's flannel draped over the porch chair like a flag of surrender. I called in sick, curled under quilts that still smelled of him. Cedar and citrus, scrolling through our texts until my eyes burned. Portland mourned with me. Gray skies wept, streets slick with regret, the Willamette churning muddy under the bridges. Sarah texted from her hotel. Heard from a friend. You okay? I wasn't, but pride or paralysis kept me silent. Lena called that afternoon. Voice a lifeline through the voicemail beep. Get your ass over here. I drove to Selwood through the haze. Her bungalow a haven of herb gardens and wind chimes. She met me at the door with tea chamomile, strong as her stare, and pulled me into the kitchen, where pie tins cooled on the rack. Ethan's a mess, she said, pouring. Pacing like a caged wolf. Marcus showed up at the site yesterday. All smug poetry. My brother shut him down. But the damage. Alex, talk to me. I did. Unraveling over mugs. The firm's ultimatum. The screenshots sting. How Ethan's omission felt like a joist pulled loose. I love him. I confessed. The words raw. But trust splintered. What if we're just another fix that fails? Lena's hand on my shoulder. Fourth touch. Timeless, grounded me. Love's not a blueprint. Kid. This demo day first. Tear down the rot. Rebuild honest. Ethan's scared too. Marcus left him thinking he wasn't enough. You're both hauling baggage. Drop it, or it'll bury you. Her words fermented as I drove home. The city transforming in the dying light. Neon signs flickering awake in Chinatown. Food carts steaming against the chill. I stopped at the Hawthorne Bridge, staring at the river's relentless flow. Below, joggers blurred into streaks. Lives in motion. What was I building here? A career that caged me, or a life that breathed? Greg's offer loomed. Severance meant freedom, but terror too. No safety net, just the stumble. That night, I drafted an email to Greg. I quit. Portland deserves architects who design without apology. Sent before doubt could recall it. A gate unlatched. Then, to Ethan porch. 8 p.m. Bring your tools. He arrived early, toolbox in hand. I shadowed but hopeful. We sat on the steps. The repaired gate gleaming in the porch light. A silent witness. I blocked Marcus, he started. Voice gravel. For good. And I talked to Lena. She reamed me for not seeing the sabotage sooner. I'm sorry, Alex. For the ghost. For letting it haunt us. I nodded, throat tight. I quit the firm. Screamed it in an email. Felt like jumping without a net. His eyes widened, hand reaching for mine. Tentative, then sure. It's terrifying, I continued. But you were right. No half measures. He pulled me close, forehead to mine, breath sinking. We rebuild together? No shortcuts. Together, I echoed. And the kiss that followed was deeper than before. Forged in fire, tempered by storm. It tasted of apple pie and river mist, of stumbles turned to strides. The climax came not in shouts, but in quiet reconstruction. Ethan's crew took me on freelance, restoring a Victorian in Irvington, my sustainable tweaks earning nods. We launched a side gig, Hale and Hart Renovations, fixing homes for queer families, grants from progressive funds padding the risk. Marcus faded to a footnote, his poetry no match for our prose. Fall painted Portland gold, maples blazing along division, pumpkin spice lattes a seasonal sacrament. Sarah visited again, meeting Ethan over brunch at Tasty and Alder, her approval a warm seal. You two glow, she said, clinking mimosas. Lena beamed, her hand on my shoulder a benediction. One crisp evening, as frost kissed the gate, Ethan knelt in the yard, a small box in his palm. Not ring, not yet, but a key to his Selwood rental, brass etched with our initials. Move in? He asked, hazel eyes steady. Build a life, not just a house. Tears pricked, joy sharp as new wood. Yes, I said, pulling him up, our embrace silhouetted against the rising moon. Portland watched, its bridges arching like blessings, the river whispering approval. In the end, it wasn't perfection, no story is, but humanity. Flawed beams bearing weight, gates that swing wide to whatever comes. Lena's touch had started it, a stumble into light, and here we stood, hearts mended, ready for the next storm. Because love, like Portland rain, falls heavy but always clears to blue.